Today I want to check in on the state of Overwatch, and this is not gonna be some really extensive video breaking down every single aspect of the game, but it's kind of a follow-up to the video that Seagull made about 4 months ago. Back then a lot of people were talking about the general state of Overwatch, and I wanted to kind of check in after 4 months what progress has been made, what progress hasn't been made, where we were hoping for more, and then maybe we can check in again in 3 or 4 months from now to see what's happened. Let's get into the different talking points that Seagull brought up in his video and see where we've gone with those in particular, the first one being hard counters. Brigitte is brought up a lot in this video, and it was definitely one of the main heroes at the time that was just a very frustrating character to deal with. We've had a lot of these different heroes throughout the different seasons of Overwatch, where often one particular character has stood out as a particularly hard counter to something that's been very annoying to play against. We've also had some characters just being ridiculously strong, such as Mercy during the Mercy meta of about 4, 5, maybe even 6 months. I think it's a really interesting example to look at, as over the past few months the meta has balanced out more and more. The DPS role is probably in one of the most balanced spots it's ever been in, and there's only a few characters that stick out as being played absolutely loads. But even the last few weeks this has changed quite a lot. Yes, Ana is still played a lot and is definitely the most picked character in higher levels of play on competitive on PC, for instance, but across the board the meta has balanced out very nicely. I would say there are a lot fewer instances of these ridiculously hard counters. Seagull also brings up Doomfist quite a lot in this video, talking about how Doomfist one-shot combo, ultimate and such could really mess up Ana, but that's another character that's been changed a lot. Doomfist has received a lot of different nerfs and then been buffed up slowly again, and is in an okay spot right now, not a great spot. But I think across the board in terms of the meta, we're currently in a decent spot, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops with the Baptiste introduction and of course the latest patch in competitive, as well as Overwatch League Stage 2 taking this patch into the highest levels of play on April 4th, so definitely don't miss out on that. But when talking about hard counters, I would conclude that we're in a pretty decent spot. There's no real hero that sticks out as being particularly annoying right now. Moving on to depth and nuance, and this is something that the Overwatch team have been working a lot on. We have more intricate plays, such as, for example, a McCree trying to flashbang a Reinhardt back in the day over the Reinhardt shield, and the Reinhardt being able to tilt his shield up to try and counter that play, and then in addition to that, having the McCree being able to, for example, fake trying to throw the flashbang above a Reinhardt shield and instead throwing it at a Reinhardt's feet. And that's kind of 3 different layers of play there. They create a lot of nuance and a lot of interesting gameplay decisions. So if you provide options for your player base, you're gonna be seeing more of these interactions. And this is something that a lot of characters just haven't really introduced. What I mentioned before with Doomfist being able to kill Ana very easily when Doomfist was kind of at his peak was definitely a good example of pretty bad, very primitive, I press this button and you're dead type of design, and that's never good for Overwatch. We're seeing attempts at the Overwatch dev team trying to address this by changing up the way armor works to not have armor feel as just overwhelming, allowing for characters like Reaper to have more freedom with his shadow step more recently. No idea if that change is going to be too ridiculous or not, but it's a good example of one of those kind of core ability changes that allows for more options. Now in terms of overall counterplay and creating more nuance like this, the only thing that really has me worried, at least that sticks out to me, is the Baptiste immortality field. We haven't really had anything like this before, and it could turn out to just be really annoying to deal with. But with the recent couple PTR patches looking at a lot of different heroes rather than a couple select ones, we definitely do have changes that allow for more interesting play. Take even the Junkrat change more recently. That was definitely one of those overall changes that at least attempts to address what previously felt boring with Junkrat, the very simple hold down left mouse button spam, and trying to turn that into something that allows for a bit more skill. Now whether skill rat or not will kind of be OP on ladder, I don't know, but to see the Overwatch dev team at least attempt to make these changes is definitely a positive development, and I think we're gonna have to check in after this patch is really settled in about a month from now to really see if these changes have had the desired effect. Depth and nuance in gameplay is something that is going to be a continuous discussion though, and never gonna be quite perfect. I just hope that these fundamental changes that the Overwatch dev team can make to the different heroes, and then as well future heroes don't reintroduce issues that, for example, Brigitte brought to the game with the more primitive rock, paper, scissors hero countering style gameplay. Those were definitely the two main points that Seagull brought up, but there was also another very important one talking about the lack of scoreboards and stats, resulting in most people guessing, and it's easy to blame it on others and blame it on people who are doing fine for their role without you knowing. I think Seagull said something along the lines of everyone's playing a little bit blind, and this is still definitely an issue. I don't think there's even been any real attempt at trying to telegraph things a little bit better here and give players more information. I'm surprised the Overwatch dev team haven't actually taken a stance on this and at least mentioned it, as it's something that is asked about quite a bit. I don't think it's necessarily one of the issues keeping Overwatch from being a better game entirely. I don't think it's like the main problem, but it is one of those things that we haven't really seen any change in the past 4 or 5 months. Even going back further than that, we've not really seen any development here. And to clarify, this is more about the sort of mid-game stats. When you are playing in your match, how are you and your team doing? Where can you identify issues and kind of improve? And with the toxicity discussion around Overwatch, this is again one of those things where I would love to have them change this on the PTR, see if people feel like there is more toxicity or just more aggressive interactions of players calling each other out, or if it actually turns out to be a less frustrating experience by providing players with more information. So unfortunately, no developments in that part. Moving on the final point, we have ultimates. Seagull talked a lot about how ultimates are too powerful, and this is something that I've brought up as well, especially in the past half a year or so when I've started to feel more frustrated with Overwatch, as ultimates in Overwatch are crazy strong. Take, for example, what Seagull says, a Genji Ana Nano Blade. That combo can just really get stopped by making the other team completely invulnerable, or at least practically invulnerable, by taking Lucio or Zenyatta ultimates here. So you have to make your team almost entirely invulnerable to deal with these powerful DPS ultimates, and that in itself leads to more snowballing and more frustration, which just adds to all of these other issues we previously mentioned. This is something that I think the Overwatch team have just recognized as being a part of Overwatch at this point, and I'm not sure how you can change this, but it's definitely clear that we haven't seen any real changes in here. There have been almost no changes to ultimates the past few months. Sure, there's the odd example here and there, but no overarching rework, no big patch taking a pass on all of the different ultimates, seeing what can be improved or changed. I'm not even sure if this is something that the entire community agrees upon being an overarching problem, especially as something like ult economy and coordinating with your team in that way is just accepted to be part of the gameplay as well. However, again, as Seagull iterates, ultimates being as powerful as they are become a we have more ultimates, we win situation, which reduces that nuance mentioned earlier and contributes to the very primitive and frustrating gameplay in a high level match, say at Overwatch League level as well. You have strategies in place you can pull off to avoid falling behind in those situations where your team are low on ultimate whilst the enemy has some available, but this just doesn't happen in ladder games and just makes the experience very frustrating, and it's difficult to work with and difficult to change. Personally, I would love a patch that changes all of the ultimates up a little bit in Overwatch. Okay, maybe not every single one, but we have these patches in MOBA games occasionally where they just go over a few different characters. Dota's had so many of these, and they do full ultimate reworks, or at least rescaling the different numbers in there, just to see how that can shift the game, and it is a lot of the time a very refreshing experience. So that's pretty much most of it summed up there, and I hope I kind of got my point across, but just to summarize, I do feel like there are improvements being made. Maybe not at the pace that we all would like, maybe not in all of the areas that people have issues with, but there definitely are core changes being made. I really do think the last few PTR patches are the best example at this, but now it kind of comes down to adding good future heroes that check these same boxes and work well with the current roster, as well as iterating and keep improving in these core gameplay areas that the Overwatch team has recently looked at. Let me know what you would like to see. Let me know if you think this video was kind of a fair representation of what has changed. And that's all for this time. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.